Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. This morning with me I have Priscilla. Priscilla's a social media manager, I guess you would say. And so without further ado, I'm going to let Priscilla take it away.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Wynn, for having me on this podcast. I love getting to talk to new people and thinking also about what I do day in and day out from different perspectives. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have about what I do, but I love the idea that you're sharing wisdom too, and what can we learn from each other. We've all been on interesting journeys, either as managers, as business owners, and then all of the other roles we play in our life, whether that's parenting or friends. And I think sharing that wisdom along the way is huge. And for an entrepreneur personally, it really is the only way that we move forward, and that's by sharing and reaching out and telling people what we know, what we've learned, and absolutely what we don't know yet and what we're struggling with. So I appreciate just the idea of sharing wisdom.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I just made a official announcement this morning, and I'll make it again so people can hear it again. I'll be leaving education in the next 4 years and fully taking on a freelance journalist career in fashion journalism, believe it or not. I'm a fashion
Wow.
So I will leave the semi-stable paycheck and through a degree in, well, I will start the degree on in my stable paycheck, and then I will leave to pursue a degree in freelance journalism because I feel like I am a journalist and I feel like I am self-taught. I mean, I've been doing this I've been hosting various versions of this podcast for the past 4 years. So I wanted to ask you, what's your favorite social media that you get to work with on a daily basis?
Well, for favorite social media, that's interesting because I talk with people a lot of times about not getting married to a particular social media channel, and I remind people that, once upon a time, telegrams were social media. And as a cultural anthropologist by trade, actually, people we can't help but be social. We're social beings. And so right now when someone asks me that question, usually they're asking me to say YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, these kinds of things. If I really had to say something like that, I would probably say LinkedIn just because I have so many business-to-business clients. And there's a really neat, I think, a gap in LinkedIn right now of there are a lot of people on it, but not necessarily a lot of people really working it correctly. And because of that, it gives us a lot of opportunity to shine. So maybe that's a little bit of a selfish, answer, but I kind of throw the question back to you about, our podcast is also a social media channel, for us socially. And obviously I use all my social media channels to promote my podcast, and I know that you do as well. And I when I think about all those things I do, for me, podcasting comes at the top of the list. And I was curious if what enlivens you about continuing to do this? You said you've been doing some kind of version of this for 4 years. Do you feel that like I do?
I feel that if I am inspiring one individual who is listening to this podcast, I feel like I'm doing my job. Not 100 people have to take my advice, but one person has to listen to my advice, listen to the interviewers like you, like the person I interviewed yesterday, who happens to be a fan that knows me in real life and knows my family. And we were talking about my biological mom, who would have been 56 yesterday, believe it or not. And the reason why I wrote my book is because of her. People think I wrote my book and then the podcast spun off my book. Well, that's partially true, but I wrote my book because of my mom, and that's why I brought her BFF on, her best friend on, to celebrate with me and share some of my mother's wisdom through her BFF. So I think if one person listens to my podcast and gets the information they need, I think I'm doing a wonderful job.
Well, I think we're in agreement there is that, no matter what kind of social media we're on is that we're not really focused on what that channel is. That's just a vehicle. We're trying to speak our message and speak our truth and be who we are authentically, and in that try and inspire someone. So to me, the social media channels are going to come and go, and it doesn't matter what kind of job you do next, whether you go to journalism or go somewhere else, you're constantly going to use whatever channels are in front of you to, promote that inspiration. And to me, that's why I say in some ways I don't care about what social media channel it is. Pick your channel. But more than anything, I think we've connected because you're being your authentic self.
Well, I appreciate you saying this, and this is not about me. This is not Wynn's podcast hour. This is Priscilla's podcast hour. So that being said, what is your favorite book?
Oh my gosh, my favorite book. I read so much for work, and I actually am such a podcast just maniac. But I love to read. But a lot of times by the time I get to reading, I want to read for enjoyment. And I am absolutely a travel narrative reader. So 9 times out of 10, you'll catch me reading something by Bill Bryson. I love his book, In a Sunburned Country, about travel through Australia. But I think the funniest book, the best book that I love to recommend to other people is Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris. And when you come home from a long day of work or you're on a long business trip and you just really need to unwind and let your brain go, anything by David Sedaris completes me, takes me off and onto just a very kooky, place, which to me really relaxes my mind, because day in and day out I'm doing so much detail-oriented work for clients on a very, very organized basis, and sometimes just the freedom in a book to just unwind is really, really key for me.
And I presume you could find In the Sunburned Country by Bill Bryson or any book by David Sedaris on Audible, on Amazon. If you guys can't hold a book or just too lazy to hold an actual book, audiobooks are a terrific one. And the last Bill Bryson book that I read was A Walk in the Woods. And that was a book that, here we go, he's 100 pounds, he's starting to hike the AT, which is the Appalachian Trail. And the reason why I bring it up is because there's a podcast out there called Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail. And it's hosted by Englishmen who decided to take the Appalachian Trail on in his 50s. And it's a wonderful podcast. So you bring up Bill Bryson, I bring up the Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, because even though we're talking about a book about the Appalachian Trail, I'm talking about a podcast. But still, if someone gains some form of information through both formats, we're happy.
Yeah. On the side of what I do all day long, probably the best book that I read this year so far, specifically about what I do day in and day out. And in fact, I just had him on as a guest on my podcast. But, for those people who are tuning in because they are interested in marketing, Social Selling, Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers by Tim Hughes and Matt Reynolds. That was a great read. So that's another little, if your brain is engaged and you're ready to think about your business and your marketing strategy, that was a terrific book, just really outlining, to me, very clear concepts and very tangible tips about how to socially sell. I loved it. It was very good.
And I want to know. Now, I'll phrase this question this way, and you don't need to give me one answer. You can give me 4, you can give me 2. But what is your favorite podcast episode you have done? I know I phrase it as pick your favorite child, which is hard for people, but
right.
What is your favorite podcast episode you have done?
Oh, gosh, that's funny. But right off the top of my head, I got to think of a very early one that I did where me and my producer, sometimes I'm on with just my producer and he and I talk, and sometimes I have a guest on. But he is very, very funny guy. So I love talking with him. It kind of comes out in the podcast. But we had one very early in the game called something like Priscilla Questions China's Authority or something like this, to that effect. And it was us talking about a press release that the government of China had put out. And we were talking about this in terms of PR and marketing and you know, who decides what news gets out there. And that's a big issue for, obviously it's become even bigger in this last year for us here in the U.S.
Yeah.
But, you know, we were very tongue-in-cheek about it, but, you know, we were cracking up at this PR, you know, that had come down from really on high in China and basically telling people this is the way you're going to react socially. And we were laughing so hard about that because, you know, there's no way that anything like that would fly in the U.S. We, you know, as marketers, we can't even tell what's going to work the next day, you know, and people who tell you that they're completely sure are totally lying to you.
No, we can't even tell you what's going to work the next day.
No, so you have to have a system that's organized at the bottom, like, you know, so that you can actually, you know, experiment and A/B test and figure out what's really working and look at your own, you know, statistics. But that one was just kind of a romp. I thought it was fun. I do try and pick issues that are fun and funny around marketing and make it interesting. But I also do deal with like really pressing, you know, questions that people have about how do I move my business forward, or, you know, in a just a noisy environment about marketing, and very high standards about how people should be marketing. What is a business owner to do? What is the content marketing officer to do? What is the, you know, VP of sales supposed to do? So there was one other one that I talked about the future of marketing, or a future of social media. And I really enjoyed talking about that, and I actually keynote about that very subject quite a bit. So those are 2 episodes that I probably enjoyed the most. But any time that my producer can get me laughing, I'm having a great time on my podcast.
Okay. Now I'm going to throw curveball questions at you, and then we'll go back to the baseline questions. But what is your why behind what you do? Was it a passion from a little girl, or was it you just wanted to go into marketing? I don't know what your original degree's in, but from college. But what is your why, and why are you doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, my degree is in cultural anthropology, and so, you know, the study of humans. How do we act? How do we connect? What are the tacit agreements we have? You know, we don't have to speak about them. We show them in the way that we interact. That is huge about how we buy and how we, you know, connect socially. So there's a great connect there, but I definitely did not go to school thinking I would own a marketing firm. In fact, I owned a financial credit card processing firm before that I still own. And I really stumbled into this. I'm just very good at connecting dots. People also have mentioned to me that they think I'm like the business dream whisperer. So where someone has an idea and it's like, I can see that idea and do almost like what I would call maybe a rapid prototyping of it. Say, oh, that's an interesting idea. Tell me more. And, you know, fan that idea to flame for a minute, get it really roaring, and then just decide, wait a minute, okay, what's the problem here? I can rapidly prototype almost the life of a particular idea or business idea out and basically come to a pretty quick understanding of whether I personally think, not that that's necessarily definitive, but hey, is this going to work? And what are the kinds of marketing engines that we could put around this, to work? So I really stumbled into owning a marketing firm because I was doing my other job and giving business owners really great marketing advice, and so they just continued to ask me for marketing advice, and until I'm like, fine, I'll partner. Let me get a good marketing person. I'll send them to you, and so I was getting a cut of referring people, but they kept coming back to me saying, no, I want to talk with you. Like, wow, when I got the opportunity to start Little Bird Marketing, actually it was a different company before that, I started Grow Marketing, and it burned to the ground. And once again, here I'd started something that I hadn't intended to start, and then my studio burned to the ground over 5 years ago, and I had to start over. And so my why, kind of how I come back around to that, what my why is, I'm really trying to every day get up and be authentic to myself. I need my kids to see that you don't have to follow the exact mold that everybody else thinks is a career path or a life path. My husband's a stay-at-home dad. He has been for 15 years. It's been a real privilege and a luxury that we've been able to do. And that is going counterculture. Me being a CEO of 3 companies is counterculture, and this is what why I think I resonate with you. It's about being your authentic self, and you don't let someone else define for you what kind of a career path that you need to be on. That's what I need my kids to see. I want to wake up every day thinking that I'm actually really honoring the gifts and the talents that I've been given.
Well, it's funny you say that I met with my rehab the other day in Colorado, and it's so funny because I did a deep dive with my life coach, who's also my podcasting partner. He does it with me one day a week, and I made him do a deep dive before I went into this meeting because I knew they were going to ask me, what do you want to do with your life, essentially. And I said to the woman, I said, I want to be a freelance journalist, and that's that. And she just looks at me like, okay, that's what you want, and I don't need to find a job for you. Mm-hmm. And she goes, entrepreneurship isn't easy, the paperwork isn't easy, but we'll do it for you. My dad and I just looked at each other like, we know that. I know my dad has he was a solo entrepreneur up until my mom died, from 1990 to 2000, actually 1987 to 2010. So entrepreneurship has been in my life since I can remember. I mean, I was a secretary at my dad's office at one point, and helped him with his company at one point. But people think the disabled need a job, need a steady paycheck, and I'm reversing the tracks here. I am one of the very few that has a podcast, and I'm reversing the tracks there. So you and I are reversing the tracks there. I mean, most moms are stay at home. Most dads go to work and bring in a paycheck. Nope, we're reversing the tracks there. And so if people get one piece of information out of this podcast today with you and I, Priscilla, I'll be happy.
Right, right. Well, and I think it's also, people have these certain dreams. Like, I want to be a CEO, and I want to be, it usually comes with rich and powerful. It's usually, some of that dream,
Yes.
especially with being a CEO or an entrepreneur or something like that. But there's if that's what people are focused on, there's so much that they lose out on the way. That journey of, like, if you go into freelance journalism, it's because you have a deep love for it. Now, I'm not a person who goes, oh, just follow your passion, you'll make money at it. No, follow your passion if you want it to be a hobby, or follow your passion if it's in work and you want it, you can work it. I just don't think you have to be absolutely passionate about that, this thing. If marketing went away the next day, of course, it's just like I have tons of skills in it, but that's not my why, and that's what I hear from you. That's the journalism is a vehicle for you. But to me, you take away all of the life lessons if you're just focused on that achievement, and you get robbed of a few of them. Like, you had asked me a while back when we talked what was, a life achievement that I was proud of. And I thought about it for quite a while, and, I went back to the very first thing that came up to my mind, and that was that, ever since I've been an entrepreneur, I have made payroll every other Friday. I've never missed making payroll. And, it's so funny, people think about those kinds of accomplishments. They want to know, how much did you get in payroll? Are you making this massive amount of money? But they miss then those kinds of achievements. Like, just for example, right now, as you're moving into, a different field, enjoying that transition. Okay, there's a lot of work to go into it. Okay, what are my next steps? And being able to then, come back to your why and be present in that journey. Okay, when you get that first job, when you get the second job, when you get the third, and go, they look at the end product as opposed to, enjoying, the things along the way. And if I look 15 years back, I mean, now we're a multi-million-dollar company, but I look, back, 14 years ago, I remember my first 30 days making $75. And, you can't have, you can't go, overnight into success without having the month that was $75. And I remember working really hard for that. And I remember thinking, wow, this is going to work.
Yeah.
So, we're at a different stage, and you're walking into something very different, Wynn. And I just, I think that's a, lesson that people can hear. It's, it has to be the true thing that it is right now. You have to be present in your life, in your entrepreneurial journey, and be true to it.
You have to be authentic in your life. It's like, and trust factor. And Priscilla, what has been your favorite client success story that you have looked on?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I think I think a lot of times when I really am my true self, I'm just a truth teller. And I think some of my I know my best clients are the ones who have stayed with me for years and years, are the ones who I dropped a truth bomb on at some point or the other, and I took a big risk, and I said to them things that other people were not saying. And I'll give you an example. I love this story, and it makes me, it makes me encouraged to keep just telling people the truth and not necessarily what I think they want to hear. But I remember many years ago, this is when I was much smaller, and I got a call from a very large insurance company in this area, and I was pretty flattered, honestly, that they would call me. I was a startup. And so I drove out there, and I saw the owner. I said, hey, listen, I heard that you're calling me out here because I'm the only social media expert in town. You heard I'm good at it, and you'd like to have a Facebook account for your insurance company. And he's like, yep, that's why you're here. And we hadn't walked into his office yet, and I said, I'll tell you what, I don't mind driving out here. I'm flattered that you would call me, but I don't want to waste your time. And here's the thing. Of course you can have a Facebook account. They're free. Why would you have I'm just going to tell you right now, we can sit down for half an hour and I'll convince you why you do not want to have a Facebook account about your insurance company. Or you could just believe me and I'll leave and it's just a freebie. And he just looked at me like, and I said, or we could sit down and talk about something else that I think would work well for you. And he's like, well, let's sit down. Let's talk about something else. And we proceeded to talk about really what was going on. See, other people tell you you have to have Facebook, or you have to do this, or it's always something next. Everybody's always telling you the way you should run your company, the next moment, the way you should run your life. And if we follow those constantly, our businesses go completely wonky, and so do our lives. And so instead, I sat down and talked with him about, well, what really is your company about? And at the end, to make a long story short, at the very end, I came back to him after several days of thinking through what he had told me. And I came back and I said, I take it back. You can have a Facebook account, which is funny because, of course, everybody can have a Facebook account. But I just being, funny with him and honest. I'm like, insurance is boring. How about instead we make a Facebook account about all the good that you do in the community? How about we use it to promote, all the places that you give money, all of the charities that you help with, and all the charities are constantly asking me, hey, do you have anybody who would help pay for a tent for our event? I'm like, you guys have tons of money. Why don't you guys buy a tent that all the local charities can borrow, and every time that tent goes out somewhere, it's, your tent, and this was the Bionics Mega Fan Dome. And it's like, okay, let's follow the dome around town. The dome is doing good. The dome is highlighting, great charities who are doing amazing work in the community. And all this company now was doing is let me just back you up. Let me give money to the people who are already doing cool stuff. I'm like, now that, an insurance company doing that I'd follow. And so to me, that's a win,
That's a win-win, no pun intended. But
yeah.
I was just going to say that people don't necessarily care about your company. I'm sorry, but they don't. They care about the person behind your company. And the insurance agent story you just told, every insurance company thinks they should be on Facebook. Well, if Facebook goes away, they're going to lose all that data. Plus, they're going to make a bad impression on their business. Plus, more people care about people that they know, like, and trust. They don't necessarily care about the big companies. They care about the faces behind those big companies.
Right. And thankfully, a lot of the big companies have listened. They have heard that. And there are innovative approaches to where they can actually use their social media platforms to showcase, the good that they're doing in a lot of different aspects, whether that's diversity, whether that's, promoting women within the ranks or promoting women within tech or, doing something, interesting. I've done a lot of cool projects with adding veterans. It would be awesome to do something about people with disabilities. I work for a company that works with children with autism and their families. And, you just get a really cool privilege to use marketing for that kind of personal connection and that good in the community. And luckily that some of the companies, they're waking up to it and they're going to do it. But it's not just the job of the big companies. It's the job of every company, to think about their the authentic humanness behind who they are and then put that out in their marketing, then put that out, in their social media.
Yeah, exactly. And that being said, Priscilla, I would love to team up on a project with you and with you inside your marketing company to bring the eye of the disabled to your marketing company. So let's talk offline. And I would love to work with you as a freelance writer. See? Hello?
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly. Your network. Hello.
Well, you put it out in the universe, and that's what comes back to you when.
Maybe we can talk offline via email and via text. But before I let you go, I want to know where people can find you, and then I'm going to let you turn the mic on me and ask me anything that you want to ask me.
Mm-hmm. Well, people can find me at littlebirdmarketing.com, and it's super easy to reach me. I'm very active on LinkedIn, so it's Priscilla McKinney. And then they can also follow me on my podcast, which is called Ponderings from the Perch, the Little Bird Marketing Company podcast. And there I talk about entrepreneurship and what I call the stunning discomfort of entrepreneurship, along with a lot of other marketing issues. And I have a lot of great guests that are really thought leaders in the marketing world. So with my guests, I really stay in the marketing side of things. But then when I'm working with my producer, I'm really talking about a lot of different subject matter. But, well, my big curiosity about you, Wynn, is really two questions that I had. I touched on one a little earlier, but, you know, for you, all the time that's invested in a podcast, which I'm well aware of, you know, doing a podcast that doesn't bring you revenue, it is really it is a labor of love. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
But there has to be something else there. What makes it worth it to you?
Okay, sharing my story and teaching about cerebral palsy, that's why I'm exiting out of the classroom to truly teach about cerebral palsy, because without my podcast, thousands and thousands of people wouldn't be learning about physical disability that affects 10,000 babies every single day. And, yeah, so truly teaching about cerebral palsy is my why, and I'm hoping that a big sponsor will come along in the next couple of years here. And even though I have a small sponsor that pays me, and even though I have sponsors that give me discount codes, that isn't enough. So I'm hoping, I'm putting this out to the universe right now. Big sponsor, please come help me, because I want to do this. I want to teach people about cerebral palsy, but it's a labor of love.
Mhm. Yeah. I love it. Do you get to hear back from people, you know, that have been inspired by your story?
On the occasion, when I jump on other people's podcasts, I am one of the top downloaded podcasts on other people's podcasts, because people just do a random search for CP, and obviously I pop up. So on the occasion I get to hear, I was inspired by your story, but yeah.
Mhm. Well, also I was a little bit curious, you know, other people with CP, what kinds of jobs, you know, are they interested in doing in, say, the marketing field? Because that's that's what I know. And as far as what you were talking about, you know, I deal with freelance writers all the time. Is that something that a lot of people in that community just don't know how to get started into, you know, into contributing to such a massive content marketing need that companies have?
A lot of people with disabilities don't know how to start their own company. I interviewed a young man, Eric, who is a freelance graphic designer, and a lot of people with disabilities have job coaches and have all this good stuff, but the job coaches, and this is kind of the job coaches' fault, and now that I'm with a job coaching company, per se, for my own educational pursuits, if I didn't want to tell them what my life goals were, they would probably stick me, and I'm dead serious when I say this, because this is the job coach gives the disabled person. Cleaning the floor at Whole Foods, I know that, and then they give the disabled person sticking forks and spoons and napkins. I'm not kidding when I say that. So a lot of disabled don't know how to use their network. A lot of disabled, I am lucky because I don't have power of attorney, so I can sign my own documents. And so a lot of disabled have power of attorney, so that means they have to wait for the parent to sign their own documents. And so a lot of people are living with their parents, but yet they don't know how to reach out and be smart about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's just a couple of suggestions, and if this is helpful, to your audience, but, for those who, want to have their own schedule, but still need to have something that is structured and don't necessarily want to go out and, create their own company, a lot of us in content marketing, we have to have content all the time. And now we have writers on staff, but there's no way we can keep up with the demand. So here, I'm just going to throw like maybe 4 or 5 names out here that people can go look up. But I think it is common that people know about Fiverr, FIVRR.com. It's a good way for them to start. Yeah. It's like a low price of being able to put out, hey, this is what I'm good at. I can write blog titles, or I can do this, small little pieces of research. But Scripted, Text Broker, Zeris, that's Zeris, or Writer Access, one of my favorites, have basically established relationships with writers that really fit across all kinds of, themes, and they need experts in so many different fields. And that's one way that in my opinion, someone with a disability, and also people who just want to get more control over their hours and what they want to be able to do. That's a great way to get started there. Another idea is thinking about some of the problems, like, and really solving a problem for someone in marketing. For example, you could go to a CEO who really wants to be a thought leader. We don't have time to go vet new places, for us to speak, or new places, especially to get podcast interviews. And I think that's a really interesting niche. I have a lady who's a freelancer who goes out and finds, podcasts for me to be on. Now, you found me somehow, and so, that wasn't from somebody who is a freelancer for me. But I have a list of, look, these are my wish list. These are the podcasts I want to be on that are very high up in my actual industry of thought leaders. And I don't have the time to go through all the rigmarole of how to get on there. So I can hire a freelancer to do that work for me. And to me, I think that's another option. I don't know. I hope to throw those 2 things out and maybe inspire someone to go, wait a minute, maybe I can figure out how to do what I want to do from home and to gain, their freedom.
My whole point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So those are 2 ideas from my world of just issues and problems that people are facing, and how someone else could come in and solve it and do that with a really great paycheck.
And the thing I'm going to say, and then we'll close out this interview with what is your favorite podcast that you listen to. But the thing I'm going to say, give a disabled person a job, teach them once, they do it 110%. My producer, Danielle Coulter, handles my schedule. She has it down to a science. I say, she's also my BFF too, which helps because they say never work with friends and family. But we started this relationship before I brought on my team as my BFF. And she also has cerebral palsy. So give a disabled person a job, and they do it 110%.
Amazing. Well, I will share one of my favorite podcasts, and it is along the lines of diversity and inclusion. And I'm a big proponent for the work that Emerging Women is doing. And they have a podcast, the Emerging Women Podcast. You should check it out. But they have a conference once a year. I'll be going out to there in October. But I've been going to it for the 5 years that it's been going on. And it's really about, women changing the landscape and changing the way that we lead and the way that we really understand diversity and really understand inclusion and change our world because of it. So that's a podcast I love, and I think it's right along these same lines, along with, including people with disabilities and in this case, like really, thought leadership coming from very strong women in this world.
So it's a women-based podcast, but they include inclusion. I have to listen to that podcast myself because I want to be on my podcast, but it's hard to find people that include me on podcasts because they're scared of disability.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge stigma behind disabilities, and I'm trying to break that stigma and teach people about disabilities. So, Priscilla, what would be your closing statement of this podcast?
Well, it's just been a delight. I think that, this not being specifically just about me as a marketer or just about me as a woman entrepreneur, we're so many different things. You're not just a person with disabilities. You're not just a freelancer. It's nice to have an interview where these kinds of things cross boundaries and we can talk just human to human. I guess my thing I would say to your listeners is, start these kinds of conversations where it's a lot more open-ended, because if not for Wynn reaching out to me, we wouldn't have had this dynamic conversation. And this is how you grow your mind, expand it out and say, well, what is possible for me? Certainly there's something bigger, and that only happens when you start a conversation with someone completely out of your typical sphere of influence.
And I would love to support Priscilla and love to help Priscilla. So as I said, let's talk offline. And you guys know, if I am looking for a job, you guys know those we have, they're not necessarily going to help me. They are, but they're not going to help me. It's going to be a long, slow process, and that goes with any vote we have. I just walked in there wanting assistive technology to school. I didn't realize they were going to help me find it. But
right.
It's going to be a long, slow process, and so I'm starting the process now on my own. So if you guys have any brilliant ideas for me, please reach out to me, and we'll have all of Priscilla's information in the show notes. And I apologize twice for the phone ringing. I didn't know if you guys could hear that, but I also apologize for a person walking into a interview on me, my dad, which he's fully supportive of this podcast, but with the dolphin, he goes, he wants to talk to me about a deer living in my backyard. See, that's the power of a podcast. You get strange requests in the middle of the interview. But that's, if you guys hear that, that's the power of a podcast. So, human
and I have a lot of
that.
Wynn, also just one last thing is that I have a lot of free resources. For people who can't use our services, we have so many free resources on our website. Everything about, starting your business, getting your marketing organized. There's just no cost to them. Just get on our website at littlebirdmarketing.com/resources, and if they help you, awesome.
Awesome. Well, it was a wonderful conversation, and you guys will hear this episode today, and then we'll carry on and just make the world a better place, you guys. And this podcast has been sponsored by Kitter, Kitter, and Kitter is a desktop app for Twitter. They can compose the tweet, or you can compose the tweet, but they can put the trending hashtag with it. So I thank Kitter for generously sponsoring this podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed another fabulous episode. Thanks to you guys.
Awesome. Well, that was great, Wynn.